For 11 months, 8-year-old Ava Whitmore had not spoken a single word. Doctors found nothing physically wrong. Therapists tried games, music, art, and carefully planned routines. Her billionaire father hired specialists from across the country, built a private therapy room inside their mansion, and changed schools twice, but nothing reached her. Ava simply watched the world with guarded eyes and answered every question with silence. Then one rainy afternoon, while waiting in a hospital corridor after another unsuccessful appointment, a tired single father named Ethan Cole sat beside her with his daughter's pink backpack at his feet. He did not ask Ava to speak. He did not tell her to smile. He simply sat there quietly, and for the first time in nearly a year, Ava looked at someone as if she finally felt safe. If you believe kindness still matters and that people deserve second chances after life has broken something inside them, please like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to Dad's Hope. Your support helps emotional stories like this reach people who may be silently carrying more than anyone realizes. Ethan had not meant to sit beside Ava. He was at St. Matthew's Children's Hospital because his 7-year-old daughter, Lucy, needed a follow-up appointment for a heart condition she had been born with. Ethan had been raising Lucy alone since his wife died 4 years earlier, and hospitals had become places he knew too well. He knew the smell of disinfectant, the sound of wheels moving across polished floors, the strange silence parents carried when they were waiting for news they could not control. That afternoon, Lucy was inside with a nurse while Ethan sat in the corridor holding her backpack and trying not to think about the bills stacked on his kitchen counter. Ava was sitting 3 chairs away with a woman in an expensive suit and a security guard nearby. Ethan recognized the woman as Claire Whitmore, founder and CEO of Whitmore Industries, but he did not stare. Wealth meant very little in a hospital hallway. Ava sat with her hands folded tightly in her lap, staring at the rain moving down the windows. Claire kept checking her phone, then looking at her daughter with an expression that mixed love, fear, and exhaustion. Ethan recognized that look immediately. It was the face of a parent who would trade everything they owned for one sign that their child was okay. When Claire was called away by a specialist, Ava remained seated with the security guard several feet behind her. Ethan noticed a small paper bird on the floor near the girl's shoes. It looked as if it had fallen from her coat pocket. He picked it up and placed it gently on the chair between them. Ava glanced at him. Ethan smiled but said nothing. That was all. A few minutes later, Ethan began folding an old appointment slip into a tiny paper boat. It was something he often did for Lucy when she was nervous. He set the boat on his knee and pretended to inspect it seriously, then placed it beside Ava's paper bird. Ava's eyes moved from the bird to the boat. Her expression changed almost imperceptibly. When Lucy returned, she climbed into the seat next to Ethan and immediately noticed Ava. Lucy had never been shy. She began arranging the paper bird and boat as if they belonged together, moving them across the empty chair between the girls. Ava watched. Lucy did not ask why she was silent. She did not ask what was wrong with her. She simply played. Claire returned 20 minutes later and stopped several feet away. Her daughter was not speaking. But she was smiling. It was the first real smile Claire had seen in months. Claire had spent nearly a year searching for answers. Ava's silence began after a car accident that killed her mother. Ava had been in the back seat. Physically, she survived with only minor injuries. Emotionally, something closed. Before the accident, she had been energetic, talkative, and endlessly curious. Afterward, she stopped speaking completely. Claire blamed herself because she had been traveling for business that night. She had built her company into a global empire while her marriage slowly broke under the weight of missed dinners, postponed vacations, and phone calls taken during family moments. After losing her wife, Claire began wondering whether Ava's silence was somehow a punishment for all the times work had come first. Ethan knew none of this when Claire approached him. She thanked him for sitting with Ava and explained quietly that her daughter had not spoken in almost a year. Ethan looked at the little girl again and felt his chest tighten. He understood grief better than he wished he did. When Lucy's mother died, Lucy became afraid Ethan would disappear too. For months, she followed him from room to room and panicked if he was late picking her up from school. Ethan had learned that grief did not always look like crying. Sometimes it looked like anger. Sometimes it looked like fear. Sometimes it looked like silence. Before leaving, Lucy gave Ava the paper boat. Ava held it tightly. 3 days later, Ethan received a call from the hospital. Claire had asked whether he would be willing to meet Ava again. Ethan almost refused. He was not a therapist. He worked as a city bus mechanic and spent most evenings trying to help Lucy with homework while calculating which bill could wait another week. But Claire insisted she was not asking him to treat Ava. She only wanted Ava to spend time around someone who did not seem to expect anything from her. Ethan agreed to one afternoon. One afternoon became several. Every Saturday, Ethan and Lucy met Ava at a quiet public garden near the river. Claire usually stayed nearby but gave them space. Ethan never pushed Ava to communicate. Sometimes they fed ducks. Sometimes Lucy drew pictures. Sometimes Ethan folded paper animals while the girls sat beside him. Ava remained silent, but small changes appeared. She began making eye contact. She laughed once when a duck stole part of Ethan's sandwich. Another time, she tugged gently on Lucy's sleeve to show her a butterfly. Claire noticed everything. Weeks passed. Then one afternoon, Lucy tripped near the edge of a shallow fountain and scraped her knee. She began crying immediately. Ethan rushed toward her, but Ava reached Lucy first. She knelt beside her friend, placed both hands around Lucy's shoulders, and for several seconds looked terrified. Then Ava whispered one word. "Lucy." Everyone froze. Claire was standing 15 feet away. She dropped the coffee cup in her hand. Ethan did not move. Lucy stopped crying and looked at Ava with wide eyes. Ava seemed frightened by the sound of her own voice. Her breathing became quick, and for a moment Ethan thought she might shut down again. He crouched several feet away and told her gently that she did not have to say anything else. That was when Ava looked toward her mother. Her lips trembled. "Mom." Claire covered her mouth with both hands. She had waited 11 months to hear her daughter's voice, and the first word Ava spoke to her was the name Claire had feared she might never hear again. Claire crossed the distance slowly and wrapped her arms around Ava. Neither of them seemed to care about the people passing nearby. Ava cried against her mother's shoulder, and Claire cried harder than she had allowed herself to since the accident. The return of Ava's voice was not instant or perfect. She did not suddenly become the child she had been before. Some days she spoke only a few words. Other days she returned to silence. But now the silence was no longer a locked door. With patient therapy, time, and a sense of safety she had slowly rebuilt, Ava began speaking again. Claire offered Ethan money more than once. He refused every time. Eventually, she asked what he actually needed. Ethan hesitated before admitting that Lucy's medical bills were overwhelming him and that he had recently turned down additional treatment because he could not afford the time away from work. Claire did not hand him a check. Instead, she connected him with a foundation her company funded for families dealing with childhood medical conditions and arranged for Ethan to receive paid family leave through a new corporate partnership with the city transit department. Ethan accepted because it was not charity. It was help delivered with dignity. Months later, Ava and Lucy were nearly inseparable. Claire had changed too. She reduced her travel schedule, delegated more responsibility, and began protecting evenings with Ava as fiercely as she once protected business meetings. She finally understood that her daughter had never needed the biggest house, the best specialists, or the most expensive therapy room. She needed to feel that someone could sit beside her without trying to fix her. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who may be carrying grief in silence, and subscribe to Dad's hope. Sometimes the smallest act of patience can become the first step toward healing. Before we end, please comment, sometimes presence is enough. If you believe people do not always need advice, answers, or solutions, they sometimes just need someone willing to stay beside them. Years later, Ava could barely remember the hospital corridor where she first met Ethan. But she kept the little paper boat Lucy had given her inside a wooden box in her bedroom. To everyone else, it was only a folded piece of paper. To Ava, it marked the first day after the accident when an adult had sat beside her without asking her to explain her pain. Ethan never considered himself the reason she spoke again. He simply believed that when someone has lost their way inside grief, you do not always pull them forward. Sometimes you sit beside them long enough for them to decide they are ready to move.